don't do felony favors.
You guys do a lot of the work for them where it's like, okay,
all right, well, call the rep, get some new boards in here.
You see those people that are doing well, they're doing those small things well.
Everyone at that conference, I just want them to know that we exist. You're listening to the Roofing Success Podcast, a show created to inspire roofing contractors to achieve optimal success in their roofing businesses. I'm the host, Jim Aline, the co-author of the books Internet Marketing for Roofing Contractors and The Best Known Roofer. I'm also the co-founder of Roofer Marketers, the leading digital marketing agency for the roofing industry. On each episode, I sit down with industry leaders to talk about their processes, the lessons they've learned, and how to find success in roofing. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast. As always, or for the first time, hit subscribe. Not as always, right? Subscribe. You can try to subscribe over and over again. It might not work, but comment. You can do that over and over again. You can leave us at least a review on every platform that we're on, which is a lot of them. And if you want to take this conversation beyond what you're just listening to here, go to Facebook, type in Roofing Success, and join the Roofing Success Facebook group. Matt Danskin, what's up, brother?
Hey, good to see you, Jim.
Good to see you, man. The roofing trade show season has been out of swing for a while, so I don't get to see you as often.
Yep. We just it's just about to kick back up, though.
Yeah, it is. So we're ready, maybe grab some dinner or something while we're out on the road. But Matt Danskin, Restoration Referral Systems, for those that don't know, give the audience a little bit. I mean, that you've been on the show before, but for those of you, them listening or hearing you for the first time, who are you, Matt?
Sure. Well, probably some of the people watching this may not watch every single episode that you put out, as unbelievable as that is, Jim.
I don't believe
But if that happens, they missed one somehow. Like you said, I own Restoration Referral System, and I focus very specifically on teaching other roofing contractors and restoration contractors how to create referral relationships with insurance agents as a way of developing business.
That's awesome. It is, we've talked about this, but it was like, why don't more contractors create relationships? Right. They're always, a lot of times they're chasing that next lead. Hey, I guess I'll give Home Advisor another $1,000. I guess I'll give Angie's another couple grand. I guess I'll, but it's a lot of times those relationships have a long-term value, right?
Yeah.
What do you see with contractors, I guess, just to start off with, the ones that are successful with your program, mm-hmm. What are the traits of the people who are successful in what you do in developing those relationships?
I think the first trait, which is largely what gets people to reach out to us or be interested in what we're doing in the first place, is that they're wanting to be intentional about what they do, mm-hmm. and they're wanting to kind of determine their own destiny. And so, same thing carries through to what you're doing, obviously. Yeah. But someone that is not just going to let the market happen to them and, see what they get. But they're designing and crafting and engineering the outcome that they're looking for. Those are the people that do really well and frankly are attracted to what we're doing.
Yeah.
And aside from that, like anything, it's people that will do the work. What we're doing is a training. Some of what you do, I know you have to collaborate with contractors or whatever, but you guys do a lot of the work for them where it's like, okay, here, go show up to this house. We've got somebody, we've got a warm body that wants a roof. With what we're doing, with it being a training, we can teach them everything. And if they don't reach out to any insurance agents, if they don't have those conversations, nothing happens.
It's on our side too. It's sure. Just in a different place, right? Like, it happens in the selling of the appointment, in that baton handoff between marketing and sales, right? Like,
yeah,
do they do the work there, right? Because and are they consistent? You said a couple of things: consistency, doing the work, and being intentional. Being intentional, that's a good thing to talk about. Like, being intentional with your business. A lot of business owners, contractors or not, are just not very intentional. They're not focused. I mean, I've talked to like Nathan Thibodeau about this. We talked, and we talked about this the other day. But it's like your people's why, right? Like I think you kind of have to start with that. Like, what are you doing? Developing a plan. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and that's like we had kind of talked about offline. I'm reading the book Start with Why right now, which is really good. But being able to look at, you can go to like a deeper why of like, here's my faith and my family and all these, critical, important things. But you can even just go with the why of like, I want to optimize my time and I want to have the most impact for my efforts. That can be your why. It doesn't have to be some deep philosophical thing, but like, I want to be efficient. I want to, I want to provide for my family. I want, a yacht, whatever your thing is, like, figure out, okay, that's the target. Well, let's back into how do we get there? Like, is that a certain number of salespeople? Is that multiple offices? Is that, a specialty that you're working in? Whatever it is, there's a million different ways to skin the cat too. But you've got to start with, this is the outcome that I'm going after. Let me turn around and go back to that.
Yeah. Those are the contractors that we work with that are the most successful. They have that. They understand they understand the mission in front of them, right? They understand what they're trying to execute on. And I think that in that understanding, it really helps build the next thing, which is the consistency, right? Like that consistency in doing the work, man, it gets monotonous sometimes. And that's not the fun part a lot of times. And especially as entrepreneurs, we're business owners, we got lots of ideas, right?
Yeah.
But the execution is where it comes into place. So you said something about the why. It's like, if you want a yacht or or provide for your family, how specific do you think people should get in that why? Like how specific do you get to that why? Because providing for your family, to me, that's still vague.
It is. Yeah. And I think it's helpful to be very specific in what that looks like, in the number of hours that you're working, in, the boundaries that you're able to set, in that work-life balance, whatever that is, whether it's 20 hours a week or 80 hours a week, you need to figure out, this is what I want my life to look like. And I want to be able to engineer that outcome. I want to be able to go to all my kids' baseball games. I want to be able to, take 2 vacations a year, wherever the heck I want. Whatever those things are. And I'm a libertarian, so I don't try to put my values on anybody else. Like, you go figure out what your thing is, what your target is. But, those are some things that are common among a lot of the people that I talk to, things of that nature. And the reason for that, not only are you able to engineer that outcome, but you're able to anchor in that point that you have a vision toward. And I think that's really critical, because adversity is going to come, right? You're going to have a salesperson that leaves and takes 2 of your sales guys with them, and they go start a company and they steal some of your customers, and, your shingle samples on the way out the door. You're gonna, and your iPad, or whatever, you're gonna have stuff like that happen. Yeah. You're gonna have that big deal that you were counting on, that you thought was gonna, make your year, fall through, and they chose another contractor or whatever the thing is. Adversity is gonna happen, and it's really difficult to work through those things and work past those things if you don't have like a reason for why you're doing what you're doing. But if you've got a bigger goal of, the impact that you're wanting to make, then it's like, okay, that was a speed bump. Don't care.
Yeah.
I'm still headed towards this thing despite that little speed bump in the road, which in the thick of it can feel like a really big thing. And I experienced that myself.
All the time. It's part of business ownership, right? Like it's part of it. You're always going to hit challenges, but I think that if you embrace the problems like this is part of it. This is part of why I'm doing this, is to be a problem solver.
Mm-hmm.
2 reps left. Took the boards on the way out. All right, well, call the rep, get some new boards in here, add up, start recruiting. Like, let's go. But I think that you have to have faith in the outcome, right? Like, I think that a lot of people, when they get bogged down with problems and they start hitting these roadblocks, if they don't have faith in the outcome, that anchor point down the road.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think if you have real faith in what this will be when you get there, man, those bumps in the road are they're gonna stop you.
Yeah.
Right?
Can I talk about something for a second? So, this may seem kind of out there and spacey. This is going to sound like a Joe Rogan podcast here for a second. His crazy guest that he has. So I've got, on TikTok, my name is the Time Traveling Roofer, right?
Yes.
Which I'm not legitimately a crazy person. I don't think that I can travel, through time except for at the same speed as everyone else in one single direction. But, I'm fascinated with time travel. And I think it's really interesting. I love movies on time travel. I love the concept, books, whatever. And that fascination made me kind of examine, like, what is it about time travel that's so interesting to me, or, and a lot of other people are interested in it. And what I came to was that time travelers are very potent. They can make massive changes. They can impact the world. Right. They can kill baby Hitler. They can stop the Kennedy assassination. They can do, whatever, like these things that were like, that would change the course of history.
Yeah.
Right. And they're able to do that because they have knowledge from the future that they're taking back into the past. That's the only advantage of a time traveler. They're not stronger. They're not invisible. They can't fly. Like they have knowledge of the future. And so they act accordingly. And you can, a perfectly good person, can smother baby Hitler because they know it's baby Hitler, who would never smother a baby otherwise. Right. And this is probably, you might cut this piece out of it here. But as long as you're talking about killing baby Hitler, it's okay.
Going with it. We're going with this.
Right. But you can act with conviction. You can know I am doing this thing that has to happen to give us the outcome that we need. And if you can suspend your disbelief of what is possible, trick yourself. I'm always about tricking myself to do the things that I need to do or want to do. And take your best guess at what the outcome is that you want. That, whatever that is. And you can probably engineer through, like, what is it going to take to get to that outcome? And so when you go to work every day, if you can in your head think, I need to have the conviction of a time traveler. I'm going to be a billionaire someday. And, I've seen it, the writing on the wall, 10, 20 years from now, I'm going to be a billionaire. I need to start acting like it. I need to do what a billionaire does 10 years before they're a billionaire. And I need to learn more. I'm going to need this skill set. I'm going to need to know this stuff. I'm going to need to meet with these people. Whatever your goal is, that just gets me excited.
Yeah.
Excuse me, as I about cough. But that gets me excited. And that's kind of the way that my mind works around that stuff. So if you've ever wondered why I go by the Time Traveling Roofer, that's it.
I did wonder that. I never asked you, but I was like, when I saw your profile, I was like, all right, whatever. Time traveling roofer.
You're like,
great.
All right. That's kind of weird, but whatever.
Yeah.
So I like to preface it like I'm not a crazy person. If we could time travel, we would have already.
Yeah.
Right?
For sure. My son is so excited. One of my sons is so excited about time travel. He's like, he's like, I'm gonna invent it. Like, I'm doing it. I'm going for it. He's 7. He's so now this year in school, and like you do the little picture holding the sign of what you want to be and what grade you're in and stuff. He was like, inventor. And it was all because he wants to invent a time travel machine. So
sweet.
That's fun.
I'd love for him to, but if he invented it in the future, then we would know about it. We would
already know. Yeah, it's
unless that's not our timeline. All right, we are way off the reservation now. I'm sorry.
No, but the point of it is back to the anchor point, right? The anchor points for your whys, right? So defining what your anchor point is, what it looks like, what, a lot of people that talk about goal setting and things like that, it's not just set the goal. It's understanding what a lot of the things that go around in it, where you can see the goal, you can smell the goal, you can feel the goal. You're really understanding of that. But it's just your best, what you had said. I wrote down a couple of notes. It's just your best guess at the outcome. From your perspective at this time, because this is the fun thing in life, is that things change. Some people don't like that. I enjoy it. I enjoy that. What I thought of what I wanted out of life 5 years ago or 10 years ago, it's different now. As your business progresses, maybe when you start a business, you start a roofing company, you're like, man, if I could just get to, 2-3 million a year, 3 million a year, man, my family's taken care of, right? Like, I'm paying my bills. We're going on those 2 vacations a year. And hopefully if I do it right, I have the time to go to all my kids' baseball games, right? Like that's that anchor point. That's that end goal. And that's going to take me a couple of years, I think. That's your timeline. But then you get it 2 years in and you already hit that 3 million out of what you thought would take you 4 years. And you go, wow, this works really well. Like you see a whole different level of life, right? Like all of these things, opportunities open up to you. And I think that in business too, it's always, if you're someone that enjoys constant improvement in your life, it sounds like you're like me, reading constantly. I'm not a reader, but my Audible library is stacked. Like, I'm nonstop listening and consuming and working on improvement, right? And so all of a sudden you get to points and you're like, man, I didn't even know that what I see in the future now is what was even potentially possible, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so it's just your best guess. Make your best guess now, commit to it. But one of the things in that process is you don't know the in between. And where I think, and this is what I want to ask you about it, and kind of what it pertains a little bit to what you had talked about in the beginning when I asked you about what type of contractors or business owners are successful with your system, right? Like the work that it takes in between, the consistency, the execution of tasks and strategies and tactics and strategies, if we want to go Jim Johnson, right? Like those, the execution of that, right, is where I think people underestimate or just really don't know, right? They set that endpoint, they set that anchor point, and they're so far off track in their mind about what it will actually take to get there that once they hit those roadblocks, they fall apart. What do you think?
I would say, another thing, just whether it's with my system or just in general with people that are successful versus not, is that successful people I see, they master the small things and they do those things right, in the consistency side. And then the big things kind of fall into place,
Mm.
right? Like the big things are actually just an accumulation of all the little small things. And I think a lot of people make the mistake of seeing that big thing and being like, I want that, and I'm going after that, and forget all this little stuff. I don't need to, I'm not talking about like little roofs or whatever, but forget the showing up on time, forget the dressing, appropriately, like forget all the little things that I need to do. Yeah. Forget, answering my phone when a customer calls.
Yeah.
I want that big, that mountaintop or whatever. And it's like that mountaintop is made out of all those little rocks that you're not willing to climb. And so the people that you see that you're like, oh man, this guy is crushing it, this or gal or whatever, they're doing awesome.
Yeah.
Like if you look at their lives, down to, the way that they park their car, inside the lines or whatever, or, the way that they treat the janitor or whatever, like you see those people that are doing well, they're doing those small things well. And then the big stuff falls into place and they make it look easy. But I think that's just philosophically just a big thing that it has taken me a long time to start to grasp. And, I can talk about this stuff and still not be perfect about it. Right. Sure. But, starting to get an understanding of this, I'm reaching the end of my 30s or what, that like, all right, you can't skip over that little stuff. You've got to just do the little stuff and, that'll get you there.
Definitely. It's those little activities every day, doing the right activities on a consistent basis. And some of those things are simple, but there's all this stuff coming at you all day long from every angle. This material order got screwed up. This happened, that happened, that happened. But there's these little things along the way that if you create consistency, I like that. And a lot of times I think that's what people look at in success. They see those big things done. They see that they're at the top of this mountain, this hill, but they don't realize the steps that it took along the way. They didn't, the pebbles that were laid down, right? Like the little things that they did on a consistent basis. What do you had mentioned a few of them. What are some of those things that you see in successful contractors, that those little things that they're doing on an ongoing basis that just build and I guess snowball after a point?
Yeah. I think in today's market, content generation is huge. Whether you're a consultant like me or a roofing contractor or whatever, whether it's you doing it or someone in the company doing it, that's one of those small things where it's like, all right, we need to be putting out content once a day, 5 times a day, whatever the thing is. We just need to keep putting drops in that bucket. And we see it. I'm the same thing where I'm like, man, I want this person to sign up for my program. Hey, let me try to get all these people to sign up for my program. And it's like, it's always just out of reach. But when I, am just like, you know what, we're going to put out content twice a day, every day. And we're just going to keep going and keep going and keep going. And then lo and behold, all these people are like, man, I'm seeing you everywhere. I know what your messaging is. I know what you're doing. And then you're out there. And so same thing, these guys work themselves to death chasing roofing customers that don't want anything to do with them. And it's like, if you can put together the content and, in that context, a lot of times you're spending money to put yourself in front of people, and 99 out of 100 of them don't need what you got.
Yes.
And, they don't need it. They don't want it, whatever. That 1 in 100 will. And eventually a lot of those 99 are going to need what you got. And you were there. And now it just has this, cumulative effect, or compounding effect, I guess, that works, but you have to build up that momentum. You have to kind of build up that flywheel.
I think we'd mentioned this in our conversation earlier or the other day, being intentional about your customers. So in my thought process about this, first you have to think about who they are. right? You have to understand who they are first. Who are you talking to, right? And then now you can start that communication process. So like you guys putting out content on a regular basis, us for roofer marketers, putting out content on a regular basis. I mean, I was telling, what was it? I did a presentation at a digital marketing conference a year ago, August. So a little over a year ago. Mm-hmm. And I talked about the way that we focus on omnipresence and being in front of our potential customers at all times. They see us everywhere, right? Being omnipresent. And I broke down how many social posts that was, how many emails that we've sent, how many Facebook ad impressions, how many Google ad impressions, how many people have seen an article that we wrote as a blog post on our website. And it's hundreds of thousands of activities, right? Mm-hmm. And interactions that people are seeing. And it's just that quantity. My goal, one of my early goals when we started Roofer Marketers was there was a conference about 6 months after I got this idea. 6-8 months after I got the idea. The IRE was coming up in February. It was about July. And I was like, you know what? I just want everyone at that conference, I just want them to know that we exist, right? Just know that we exist. And so my intention on a day-to-day basis changed from selling to, I just want them to know that we exist. And we did that through content creation, what you're talking mm-hmm. about, right? And so, but I understood my customer. I understood who I wanted to know exists, right? So as a contractor, let's go back a little bit into being intentional about their customers, and now starting with who they want to know that they exist.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of it is putting yourself out there, right? Not only like, hey, XYZ Roofing, we're working in your market, we do roofs or whatever, but letting them know like who you are, like as like your company culture. Mm-hmm. Like I think some people are going to dislike what your company culture is all about. And that can be, hey, we have a good time. Hey, we're super professional. Hey, whatever it is. But some people are going to hate it. Some people are not going to care, and some people are going to love it. And those are the people that you're after. And so you have to look at like, okay, that person that I want to work with, what are they going to love? Right. Mm-hmm. Like, what do I need to exude about myself so that people that like working with somebody like me are going to be the ones that come to me? And it's not going to be, if I want to be the most expensive guy, I don't want to attract the cheapest clients. Right. Or if I love having a good time and goofing off and, still being professional, but, being kind of a jokester type of guy or whatever, I don't want a customer who's a stick in the mud. I want somebody that's just going to, be asking me, if I got a new joke today or whatever that thing is. Like if I want somebody who's a networker and, and knows everybody in town and is rubbing elbows with all the business owners in town, I want to rub elbows with business owners in town, and I want to do the same types of things that they're doing. And I want them to want to connect with me. So I think that to me, in my mind, is kind of the answer to that question is you have to, think about like, okay, who are these customers I love? Like think through your last 20 customers, whatever. Who's my favorite customer? Oh, it was the Jenkins family. All right, cool. What were they like? What do they get excited about? I need, about us, we just had this great relationship with the customers. It felt like family by the time it was done. How do we put that out there so we find more people like the Jenkins family?
I just did a training in the Pitch Pro movement, Adam Benjamin's Pitch Pro movement. I'm the marketing coach over there. For those of you that don't know, check out the Pitch Pro movement. There's my plug. I did a training on customer journey mapping. And mm-hmm. So we were mapping a customer journey, and one of the contractors that was on live, I was like, hey, let's create this customer avatar. Let's talk about one of, like what you're saying, let's talk about a customer that you've dealt with recently and how they became aware of you and how they became a customer and what they were thinking through that process. And it just so happened that the way that this customer came to their business or got to their business was that one of their sales reps does competitive fishing. And so he took the company truck to this competitive fishing event, and they're out there, and one of the other guys that was in the tournament or whatever out there with him walks up to him afterwards and was like, "Hey, is that your work? You do roofing?" Mm-hmm. There was an instant connection, right? There was just this instant connection, and we talked about, well, now, I mean, first of all, you should sponsor your rep in those tournaments, right? And have your roofing logo on their life jacket or whatever, you know what I mean? Like boat, on their boat, whatever, like become a part of the community. People buy from who they know, like, and trust. It's real simple, right? If you are if you're a Harley enthusiast and we're talking about creating content too, this company could create content around those fishing tournaments and sponsoring the fishing events and things like that. And other people who like fishing get involved in that content. And then it's a weird thing that, you kind of create your tribe, right? If you're into Harleys and motorcycles and that's your culture, that that could be part of it, part of what you're talking about in your content and creation, all that type of stuff. It doesn't always just have to be about roofing, right? Like, but it does have to be consistent. It does have to be consistent.
Well, and we talk about roofing all the time, and my clients talk about roofing all the time. If you're not in roofing, you probably don't care anything about roofing
at all,
right? Like they're not going to connect up with you on roofing. If they do, they're a roofer, and they're not going to hire you to roof their house.
It's funny. Like Andrew Itnauer, I don't know if you know him, Masters Roofing down in Memphis. He's been on the podcast before and a couple times. He does a great job on social media. But one of the things that he does is he's talking about roofing a lot. And we were talking about his following, and he has, 15, 20,000 followers on Instagram. And it's like 10, 12,000 of those are other roofers. Right. But it's like, because they're like, oh, roofing. Yeah. Yeah. And they like his content, but he's focused on the consumer, but he also does focus on the consumer. He doesn't just create content around just being on the roof. He creates content about his local area, about the Memphis, about Memphis and things like that. That's more that people can tune in for that and know that he does roofing. It's just being the best known, right? Being known for what you do. So you can't just put out content about fishing and hope that people know that you're a roofer, right? Yeah. You have to incorporate the two so that they know that this is what you do for a living. This is what you do for fun. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, I think I kind of do a lot of that stuff just in terms of like letting people know, like, I've been working on losing some weight. I've been working out and lost about 30 pounds in the last 6 months. Nice. Trying to lose about another 30 pounds. But I think a lot of people can relate to that, whether they're in roofing or something else or whatever. There's a lot of people that either work out or want to work out, or, that's something we can connect up with. Yeah. Whether they're buying my program or not. I think, even stuff like this podcast, like it gives me an opportunity to talk about my views on business and on life and on all sorts of topics that people can go, yeah, you know what? We think alike, or, it's interesting. That's maybe an area I can help them grow in something or whatever. And so they're going to connect up with me on that, kind of become part of that, like you said, that tribe together. And it doesn't always have to be a transactional thing of like, okay, now you bought my program. But it can just be, I've got some people that I feel like are in my tribe that have not bought my program, don't really have any interest in buying my program. Cool. Like, that's fine. Like, we can still talk business. We can still be friends, all that sort of stuff. And so I think the more you can grow that, there's just so many different connections, whether it's being able to send them business or being able to, I've had so many opportunities where it's like, I've got somebody reaches out to me and they're like, hey, I know you're in the roofing space. I'm in XYZ city. Who should I go work for? What's the best company out there? And I know somebody, and I'm able to make that connection and get those people together. So, this is not me plugging being a recruiter. I don't want that job. Somebody else has that job. But I love making those connections when they fall in my lap.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. What else that's intentional about connecting on social media and through content creation, right? Being intentional with your customers there. Kind of an interesting fact that in social media, is that 1% of people on social media are creators, 9% are lurkers, and the other 9% are contributors, and the other 90% are lurkers. So 1% are creating content. The 9% are the ones that are leaving you comments.
Wow.
But there's another 90 people there, right? You make a post, you're the content creator, you're the 1%.
Yeah.
9 people comment on your post. 100 people saw it.
Yeah.
That's an impression. We call in Google Ads and in things, it's an impression, right? In search, in website impressions, right? Every time you've been seen is an impression. So that social media content is powerful. A lot of times more for the lurkers that just see you, right? They just see you and see you and see you. I owned some real estate and mortgage companies over the years, and one of the kind of simple things that realtors do. Most of us have a magnet on our fridge with like the local sports team schedule.
Right.
And at the bottom is like some realtor's information, right? Like every time you walk by your fridge or check to see when the game is or who they're playing, it's just a quick impression of that company's brand. Our mutual friend Dave Carroll over at Dope Marketing talks about a study that was done where they did a survey of a specific area of a city and asked who's the number one realtor in the area.
Oh, I sent that to Dave.
You did?
Yeah.
And that's a great idea. Then what they did is they sent 8 postcards for 8 weeks with a fake person, right? And then went back and asked the same question. And the second time around, the fake person was the one that people thought. And the only reason that happened is because they saw it. They saw that person, right? And whether it's a postcard or if it's a social media post, all of it works the same way, right? It's all the amount of times that people see you. I was talking to a guy yesterday. He was like, if you have 3 wrap trucks, people will think you have a fleet. 3 wrap trucks driving around town, people will think you have a fleet because it just pops up. They see it. Oh, wow, man, I see this company everywhere.
There's one of my clients that's near here. I think they've got about 10 Ford Explorers, and they've got really good branding on them, all that sort of stuff. But it's about 10, and they're not super close to me. They're probably 30 minutes away from me. And there's a heating and air company in our area that literally has thousands of vehicles. They're the largest heating and air company in the country. And, and they're like regional or whatever. They're just everywhere. And I probably see one of those 10 Explorers more often than I see one of that heating and air company that has thousands of vehicles. Or at least it feels like I do.
It feels like you do, right? Like it's a crazy thing. Like it's, and that's really all it is. So be intentional with your brand, be intentional with your content, and be consistent, right? The more people see you, the more they will likely trust you, right? Or think of you as the best choice, the best option to call. What other ways through the customer journey, can a contractor be intentional with about or with their customers?
Obviously, I think the way that you generate the lead is going to have a huge impact. That's starting with why, like starting with the income or the outcome in mind, is going to have a huge impact on it. One of the things that I did that I think is pretty unique, I've talked to a lot of contractors about their process, that I did very intentionally, was when I would meet with a customer that was, I would start off by explaining kind of who I was, what I did, and checking in with them before I even did my inspection, before I signed any paperwork, like before I knew whether or not they had damage necessarily. And I would it would basically go like, hey, I just want to kind of explain to you the way that we work so that, we can make sure we're on the same page. And if you have any questions, we can handle that. So you can know if we're the type of contractor that you want to work with. You're like, oh, okay, great. I'm putting you in the power seat, right? So we're going to professionally inspect and document your property, which may or may not have damage. I'm not sure yet. You can mix in some, based on what we've seen in the area, I suspect there probably is or whatever. But we're going to document all of that, whether you have damage or not. And then I'll get off your roof. I'll get off, and we'll come and we'll review that stuff together. And we can have a conversation about whether or not this merits filing a claim and what that would mean for you, in terms of your out-of-pocket expenses, in terms of whether you're upgrading the property or just restoring it to its pre-storm condition. Now, the way that we estimate, as professionals, and there's not a lot of us in the industry, honestly, but as professionals, we are going to include every legitimate and justifiable line item in our component-based estimating tool that the insurance carriers use as well, and we're going to come up with that total. Now, it's very rare that I miss something there. I'm not going to say it never happens, but we know what we're doing, and we're going to include everything that's relevant there. Almost every single time, the insurance adjuster is going to intentionally leave some things out. That's just kind of their best practices that know that they're going to save them some money. And so there's usually a difference between those two. Now, we're able to provide documentation, photos, code reports, all that sort of stuff to justify why they need to pay that difference. And if they don't want to, there's a number of different avenues we can go down. Usually the easiest one is for you to be the squeaky wheel and say, hey, why aren't you paying this? And I'm going to ask for you to help me out, because as the insurance company's customer, you are uniquely positioned to fight with them. There's some areas where the law ties our hands from really fighting with them, unless we hire a public adjuster, which has an additional cost to you, or if we take it to appraisal, which has an additional cost to you. So I want to make sure that we get the best outcome for the lowest cost for you. Now, given that we're going to include all the items, if you were to have another contractor out here to look at this, more than likely they're going to leave some things out and forget some things. And oftentimes they're going to forget those same things when they go to actually rebuild your roof. Fortunately, since this is probably going to be an insurance claim, your costs are going to be fixed at the deductible amount. So if that's $1,000, you're just paying that $1,000. Insurance company picks up the rest of the bill, whether the rest of the bill is $5,000 or $25,000, and you're paying that first $5,000 or first $1,000 or whatever it is. Since we are going to install top level materials, we've got really well trained crews. We're professionals at every level of what we're doing. Is that the type of contractor that you're looking for? Or you tell me. No, that's who I want. Right. And then now if we run into hurdles with supplements, I got their help. If my estimate is 10 grand higher than the adjuster's estimate, they already understand why. And they're not like, They're not listening to any of the adjusters BS about, well, let's get somebody else's estimate. Right. And I've got somebody on my team. So just by being very intentional right at the beginning, then it sets everything else up to go much smoother. That's also, if you tell them, well, no, I want to get some bids. Now you can have that conversation about like why that doesn't matter before you waste a bunch of time inspecting it and helping them file the claim and doing a contingency piece of toilet paper and, all that sort of stuff. That ultimately is, if the customer decides to jump ship on you and go with somebody else, was just a waste of your time. There's no real recourse for you.
Yeah. So being intentional with the conversations that you have in educating, it just to kind of sum that up is like really being intentional with your language and education of the customer. Is that what you're?
Yeah. And really just setting up the deal. And I think that comes from, kind of an abundant, viewpoint. If you're like, I have to have this deal, I'll do this deal however the customer wants to do it, I'll do it for whatever price or whatever, you're going to get run around and chasing them and chasing your money over and over and over again. If you're able to say, man, I almost have too much business, it would be good if some of these customers went with somebody else just so that I'm not covered up. So I'm going to make sure this deal is right, or I'm going to kick this customer to the curb.
Yeah.
And, and that's kind of an extreme way of putting it, but that's essentially the way that you have to look at it is like, I'm going to do things right. If this customer doesn't want to do them, as a professional, I know the right way to do these things. If they're not on board with it, next, let's go with somebody else.
Yeah. And there are a lot of people out there that want to change what you want, what you think should happen to, right? Whether it's, well, the deductible, I mean, like, I'm sorry, Mr. or Mrs. Homeowner, we don't commit crimes around here, right? What I mean? Like,
I talk with guys about like that deductible conversation all the time. And once I had somebody kind of, show me this once, and then forever after that, it worked every single time. Was, when they bring up, well, do I have to pay my deductible? Or, I heard this other company, you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
And just handle it with a smile. Hey, man, I like you, Mr. Customer. I really do. I ain't going to jail for you. And
right.
So, the only way for us to effectively eat your deductible or not charge you a deductible is we have to send the insurance company one invoice and charge you a different amount, which is actually insurance fraud. And I don't look good in orange. And so,
no.
I wish I could save you that money. That's the terms of the contract that you signed with your insurance company. And so I have to charge the insurance company the same amount that I'm charging you, and they're going to pull out that $1,000. And so I have to do that. So with that in mind is, do we need to finance that deductible, or, do we need to hold off on your job for like a month so that you can get your funds together? You tell me how we can handle that so that we can stay compliant and neither of us gets into any trouble.
Yeah.
And very, very rarely did that not.
Don't do felony favors.
It's a good rule to live by.
Not a good idea. Right? Yeah. Don't do felony favors for homeowners. That's just not the best thing to do. But yeah, but being intentional. What is some of the intentional language that someone could have with an insurance agent that they're trying to develop a relationship with? Because that language changes, right? So what are some of the things that they can be intentional about in those conversations?
We focus on several different things. Some of the areas that, I'll kind of cover here is you have to be very intentional about how you build trust with those agents. If they don't trust you and trust you more than the person they're working with right now, they're not going to start referring you business. They're just not. And so if you can be very intentional about building that trust, that's your only avenue. And so we do that typically by volunteering transparency, by being able to say, you know, whether there's a number of different ways to do it, but if I can say, hey, every time you refer me a customer, I'm going to send you this company cam link, even before we go out and inspect the property. That way you can see everything that we're doing. We want to show off. It's like, you know, I kind of joke, it's like handing your cell phone to your spouse, giving them the passcode. Like, you can look through here, honey. I don't have anything to hide. Right? Like, I can trust that person. So that's what you're doing with that insurance agent, is just saying, hey, you can look through my files. You can see all my pictures. You can see what we're doing with your customer. I want to show off to you. I don't have anything that I need to hide. So building trust is very important. Another area that's very important is establishing that you are going to be their ally and that you're going to help them retain their clients. So insurance agents track their numbers. They know they're going to lose a portion of their customers every year. You know, some of their customers are going to die. Some of their customers are going to move. Some of their customers are going to go to another carrier. And the more customers they lose, that's customers that they need to sell this year just to tread water. And so if you can make the case, hey, when you send me out there to be an extension of you dealing with this customer, I'm on your team. If the customer says, hey, what do you think about my agent? I'm going to say they're the best. You should stay with them until you die. Yeah, and that's kind of a, extreme example, to joke out of it. But, if they know that you've got their back, then you can call them and say, hey, you need to have my back and your customer's back.
Yeah.
And so that's a major way that you can impact it. So I won't give out all the trade secrets here, but that's a couple of them that I think anybody can do.
And a lot of times, just like what you were talking about in talking to the homeowner, right, and having that conversation, you're kind of putting yourself in their shoes a little bit, right? So in that intentional language and intentional conversation about the process and education and opening up to them about that, you want them to trust you to be the right person to go to. Same thing with the referral relationship, whether it's an insurance agent, a property manager, like a realtor, or whoever that is, making sure that they trust you. That transparency thing is interesting. Company Cam is a great option for that, right? Where you can really, you can be very transparent about your process, very intentional about that process. And so, we talked about, starting with the why, and getting that why and creating that anchor point and doing the little things along the way, being intentional around the activities that you do, but then also being intentional with your customers and with your referral partners and in your branding, in your social media content that you're creating. And this is awesome. How can people find you if they want to get more from the Time Traveling Roofer?
Sure. So Time Traveling Roofer is just on TikTok, but you can find Matt Danskin and Restoration Referral System at restorationreferralsystem.com. We've got a live event coming up here in December. You can check that out at roofingbootcamp.com. And you can find me on just about every social media channel or roofing conference you'd want to get on.
Cool, man. This has been another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast. If you would like to generate more revenue through your digital marketing efforts, please visit roofermarketers.com to get a copy of the book, The Best Known Roofer. Also, check the training section of the website for guides on everything from running effective pay-per-click ads to how to properly set up your Google My Business listing. Thanks for listening.